10 SAT S words. Sacrilegious, satiate, satirical, scarce, scornful, seamless, sedentary, sentiment, serendipity. Let's just talk about the elephant in the room. I have a lisp. So I've had a lisp like all my life, I'm assuming, because it didn't come about just because I had an injury or like this big thing happened where I was like, didn't have a lisp one day, woke up and I had a lisp. So as far as I know, I've had a lisp all my life, but I didn't know I had a lisp. Does that make sense? Like, I don't remember making the lisp happen, but I don't remember a conscious thought where I got the lisp. I was in speech class type of thing. Like, I had this class that I had to go to in elementary school where I was taught how to speak, like, speech, what's that word, like when you go and you learn your letters, I had to do that, but I had trouble with R's, and I don't really remember S's ever being something we talked about. I was like 10 when I really realized it, probably. Not the word for it, but I realized that something was going on. Because people would come up to me and say, Hunschinger, and would really enunciate the S in my last name. And I remember thinking, that's a bit weird, but not realizing why they were doing it. And I had this one boy who would always come up to me, and he would do a lot of like lispy sounds to me, but I didn't know why. I just knew that he liked to repeat S sounds to me, and I just thought it was weird. Then I kind of got a little bit confused because I was like, everyone keeps doing that to me. It was something that a lot of people made fun of me for, but I didn't understand. I couldn't hear the difference in my voice compared to theirs, and I didn't hear that I had a lisp for quite a while. I was about 12 when I got an iPod Touch, and I started recording videos of myself. These are not to be seen by anyone but me, but I remember thinking, man, why do I sound like that? Why is it when I say this word, there's a lot of spit coming out of my mouth? And so I Googled it, and I found out I have a lisp. I'm sure at like some point during my childhood, someone told me I had a lisp, but like, it didn't acknowledge in my brain. I didn't think, ooh, I have a lisp. And it wasn't until I was like 12 that I really remembered Googling and doing extensive research on it, on how to get rid of it. And I remember being particularly paranoid because I wanted to sing, and I wanted to be a singer. Like, that was my goal. I wanted to be a singer so bad, and I was like, I can't sing if I have a lisp. And so I kept Googling it, and I was like, how do you get rid of a lisp? How do I do this? And being really paranoid about how I sounded. I was really embarrassed by my lisp. I hated to hear it, and I didn't want to speak anymore. I would avoid words with S's in them, which is really hard to do. You don't realize how many letters are in a word that involve a S until you're avoiding it. Like, every sentence has an S word in there somewhere. Like, somewhere there's an S. Somewhere your lisp is going to come out. And so it was hard for me to even speak. I have, like, an interesting lisp where, instead of putting my tongue in the middle, like most of you guys do for an S, I put my tongue to the side, particularly my right side. Don't know why. Maybe there's a meaning behind if you put your tongue to the left or you put the tongue to the right, but I put mine to the left. And so I get this type of noise, and I don't think it can be mimicked. People try to mimic it, but to me, it sounds clear even though it's not. And that gives me my lisp, is because I don't put my tongue in the right position in my mouth when I say my S words. Over time, as I grew up, people stopped making fun of me, probably because the joke got tired and old and boring. And so I myself started to forget that I had a lisp. Even when I was like filming videos, I was like, oh, I just had a lot of spit right then. I didn't realize that the lisp doesn't just go away on its own. I thought perhaps it did. And I think that kind of thinking just made me more confident in speaking. I still avoided a lot of S words though, just because I know that it generates a lot of saliva in my mouth. Like, this video is very hard for me to do because I'm saying so many S words to do this video. Like, who put S in the word lisp? Like, that was just mean. It was so mean. Honestly, like, now, I don't really hear it. I only hear my lisp when there's a lot of saliva in my mouth. And if I focus on it, I can be like, okay, there's a lisp. I understand why people can comment on it. But, like, otherwise, I don't notice it. If I'm, like, done eating and I have, like, food stuck in my teeth, I notice it. It's really just a lot of saliva generating. I will notice it if it's strong. But most of the time, I don't even realize that it's happening. I think the funniest thing is just tongue twisters when you have a lisp. Like, I'm gonna try this one. Bear with me. She sells seashells by the seashore. Oh, that was a perfect rendition of that. Oh my gosh. Oh, that was really good for me. Normally I struggle harder than that. But tongue twisters, they're the worst because you can't repeat them. They're hard to do, and having that many S's next to each other, it's a lispist nightmare. Whew. It's a lispist nightmare. I also have a dog named Hershey, and I remember when I got him, I was so paranoid about having to tell people his name. I low-key wanted to change his name just so I wouldn't have to say Hershey, and sh is the S sound in that. It's not even a S sound, and so don't know why I struggled so hard, but I did, and I never wanted to say his name. I was real embarrassed about having to say Hershey, but now I'm fine with that word. That word doesn't scare me as much anymore. It was kind of like this constant mental fight going on as I grew up. I wanted to speak, but I was just scared of speaking because of the S words, and I hated reading in class because of it. I would always try to pick the ones with the less S's as possible because I didn't want to make my lisp noticeable. My favorite word is actually serendipity, and it means when you find something good without looking for it. But I wouldn't tell people that was my favorite word because I wouldn't want to say the S word. It was just really hard for me because I would constantly be trying to avoid it. If you have a lisp and you're embarrassed by it, don't be. I was always paranoid that people found me annoying, that people didn't want to hear me speak because of it. But I found out that most people find it cute and they find it kind of endearing or something that's unique about me. No one's ever told me to stop speaking because it's annoying, only I have. And I know that I would have this problem where I would hear other people with lisp and be like, oh my gosh, do I sound like that? Am I that annoying? And I was only critiquing it or judging it because I had it and because it was something different, but it's not annoying. And I don't find lisps annoying now, besides the fact that I get embarrassed by my own lisp on occasion. And it comes out when I'm editing videos. I think that's part of the reason why it's hard for me to sometimes edit a video, is because I'm like, oh, there's a lot of lisp in that sentence right there, and I can't do anything about it. But, I mean, over time, I've kind of grown to get used to my lisp, to the point where I don't even notice it when I speak sometimes. So if you're struggling right now because you do have a lisp and you're like, how do I get rid of it? Or how do I even talk to people because of it? I would just say don't stress about it. You're thinking it more than other people are thinking about it. At the end of the day, having a lisp is pretty cool and it makes you unique. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with having a lisp. I'm learning to love my lisp instead of hate it, and I can't get rid of it, so I might as well love it. Do you have a lisp? If you do, what struggles do you have? Do you relate to any of my stories? And if you don't, what do you think of a lisp? I mean, maybe people do find it annoying and I don't realize it. Or do you think they're cute and kind of cool? Do you struggle with words yourself? I mean, everyone has words they can't necessarily say. So even if you don't have a lisp, I'm sure you can relate with at least something. I mean, you probably relate at least with getting made fun of. Everyone kind of goes through that eventually, but there's things that you can't change, but you have to learn to love about yourself. Until next video, stay totally awesome.
Zoe, the awesome, the awesome.